20-year voyage, the young Charles Darwin had become convinced that life on Earth had evolved
governed by natural laws. But the smallest insect, we wish to be created at once by a special act. During the voyage of the Beagle, I had been deeply impressed by the Galapagos archipelago and the manner in which species differ slightly on each island. The natural barriers of islands seem to be a vital ingredient in the origins of new species.
In order to make a solid case for evolution, he needed to explain how evolution happens. He wondered, if the world has changed so much during its long geological history, then perhaps all living creatures have somehow gradually adapted to fit in with the slowly changing environment. Otherwise, they would have become extinct. The survival of life on Earth can only be explained by the idea that unsuccessful species are replaced. There must be a natural law that explains how new species replace the old ones. Both can happily survive by eating grass and procreating. Then, by chance, a geological barrier divides the group in two. The environment on the left becomes drier. Food becomes increasingly scarce. The larger individual on the left dies because it needs more food than the smaller one. Very soon, the population on the left of the island only has small individuals, while on the right, there are only large ones. Sometimes, species can bridge an existing geological barrier themselves. Iguanas from the South American mainland might be cast adrift, perhaps due to a tsunami. Clinging to a tree for weeks, they could cross the Pacific, and only if they're very, very lucky, land on an island. The new environment selects very different traits, resulting, after many generations, in a very different iguana. Let's look at another example. One species has developed spines to protect itself against a predator. A geological barrier means that the predator can only reach the individuals on the left. Variation in the offspring caused some individuals to have larger spines, some smaller. The ones with the smaller spines get eaten first. Without a predator on the right side, there is no pressure to keep the spines. And in nature, if you don't use it, you lose it. Little changes like these can accumulate into major changes, creating new species that can no longer reproduce with the original ones. These blind cave fish have no eyes. They originate from deep caves in Mexico, where the lack of light and predators made eyes unnecessary. Instead, they find their way around by means of a highly sensitive organ which senses vibrations in the water. Natural selection works because more individuals are produced than the environment can support. This leads to a struggle for existence among the individuals of a population. These individuals vary in their traits. Nature selects those with the traits that best fit the current environment and passes them on to future generations. That is survival of the fittest. But for a long time, Darwin could not explain the beautiful plumes of the peacock by natural selection. The large plumes seemed to make the peacock more vulnerable to predators and less efficient in flight. Darwin used to say, "The sight of a peacock makes me sick." The answer to this problem is sexual selection. With sexual reproduction, a favorable green color is distributed very quickly through the entire population. This new green population is still a mix of many individuals. The key thing sex does is to create variety. This makes the species more responsive to future changes in the world around them. When females choose a male, they tend to choose the best or strongest looking male, as this represents his fitness. This lucky male will get more offspring. That is why the clumsy plumes of the peacock are still favored by evolution. Female choice means that sexual selection can shape the bodies and behavior of their males. Posing alone is often not enough. The large antlers of the moose are there to impress females and to combat other males. There's a lot at stake. The strongest male gets the right to mate. In the end, it's really the females that are in charge of evolution. From the very start, they invest the most in the offspring, starting with a limited edition egg cell. Only a few hundred are available in the female's lifetime, as opposed to billions of reproductive cells for males. It pays off for females to demand the best of the best. But where do we fit in the story of natural selection? Are we the crown of evolution? No, we have a more modest position. We are just one of the many species on the tree of life. This majestic family tree unites all species that ever lived on this planet. It never stops growing, producing only intermediates and never an end product. There is an unbroken thread that stretches from species that are alive today to the last common ancestor of all life on Earth. The origins of life cannot be explained by evolution, but almost everything else that ever happened since can.
as it seems to me that man, with all his noble qualities, still bears in his bodily frame the indelible stamp of his lowly origin. For many years, I kept my secret species theory right here in this cupboard and didn't dare to publish. Until I received a letter from a naturalist colleague named Wallace. He independently proposed the theory of natural selection himself. We published our essays together, and then I hastened to finish my book on the origins of species by means of natural selection. It was like confessing a murder.
Darwin was sure that variations were passed on from generation to generation, but he had no idea how. Now, we know how. All creatures are made up of tiny building blocks called cells. Inside, we are uncovering a world Darwin never could have imagined his play in shaping life.
Okay, so I hope that you really enjoyed this natural selection, and many of you might have seen it for the first time. Okay, so now we are indeed late. It's about 2:10, and I'm absolutely certain that assure you that many of the things that you have learned theoretically in your classrooms, you invite Professor Bhupati Chakrabarti with a big clap. Professor Chakrabarti. Now the podium is to Professor Chakrabarti.
Thank you, Professor Dutt. I know the reason from you, but I'm ready to show it again. What happens? Now take a look at it, what is happening. Scientific principle, and the scientists do have this faith on this principle. If you just can't go and preach it, I mean, people will not be happy. So I'll show you a small video clip. You will find how one scientist has really put this to test. The first one. Suspended from a bed like this. See what is happening? There is a ball, the reel is there. Can you see the ball is moving faster and faster? Can you see that? That scientist, I can